In this movie, the subject will be the protest that started in 2013 with the Taksim Gezi Park and spread to the whole city, and then to the whole country. In the first part, the effects of neoliberalism from 1970s, which have been the background of the Gezi, will be mentioned. Secondly, the importance of Taksim Square in the history and the change that the Gezi Park has passed from past to present will be examined. Following this, the structure of the redevelopment project proposed in 2007 for Taksim Square will be the subject with the title of Production of Space by Power Side. After the protests, people's efforts to make their voices heard will be handled with the concept of right to the city. Next section will be insurgent citizenship practices of Gezi people and its reflections on space. Finally, the results of the Gezi Park movement within the city-citizens relationship will be examined. After the global economic crisis that affected the whole world in 1970s, Turgut Özal, who was the Prime Minister of Turkey in that period, implemented the Latin American economic model to Turkey. The name of this new model was neoliberalism. Public investments of the Republic privatized, and the budget of the municipalities were increased. On the one hand, the new migrants would become tenants of new middle-class workers in Istanbul, and the migrants built their low-condition houses, which called gecekondu. On the other hand, the efforts of the city to be included in the global economy network and its attempt to take its place in the international market are manifested in many practices applied to the city with the destruction of nature. The main aim of the reconstruction of Istanbul city was bringing it into the global economy and making it competitive. Following the transition of the economic system of the country from nationalist to liberal economy in the 1980s, ongoing neoliberal urbanization policies and practices maintain its impact in Istanbul.
It loves to build mega projects on the principle of public-private partnerships, in which the general rule is that the public takes all of the risk and the private takes all of the profits. And the result is that the cities are being used again and again and again in the purpose of this endless capital accumulation. Because there's tremendous pressure on capital to find places to put its money and find places to construct profitable investment opportunities in the face of this sudden shift that actually the market system produces poverty. The market system produces inequality. The market system deprives many people of access to needed use values.
Large shopping malls have been built. Especially the efforts to become a physical space of large infrastructure investments attract attention, as Third Bosphorus Bridge. As Goldman said, marketing Istanbul city as an emerging global city can be interpreted as a part of a broader trend in which megacities of the global south become the marketable commodity under the guidance of global development. Taksim has been most important central hub which includes different kind of functions itself. It is very important in terms of tourism activities and highly active used by local and foreign people night and day. The attractive nature of Taksim bring along improved transportation system to supply mobility demand of people. The historic importance and symbolic architectural elements attract foreign people. Also, bars, restaurants, hotels, and more is available. Gezi Park is the only park within the Taksim area. The artillery barracks was in the same place of the park in the early 19th century. It was used by military services. The open space of artillery barracks was transformed into a stadium in 20th century. After the master plan of famous French urban planner Henri Post in 1940, the artillery barracks were totally demolished. So, the area defined as park as today's Taksim Gezi Park. Lefebvre theorizes the relation between space and capitalism in the analysis of the movements and crises of capitalist accumulation. In empirical terms, what this means is that neo-capitalism and neo-imperialism share hegemony over a subordinated space split into two kinds of regions. Regions exploited for the purpose of and by means of production, and regions exploited for the purpose of and by means of the consumption of space. Tourism and leisure become major areas of investment and profitability, adding their weight to the construction sector, to property speculation, to generalized urbanization. The change on the vision of the city led by the leadership of Justice and Development Party, which is the neoliberal Islamist national government. The new project, in order to shape the space of Taksim Square, structured by Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality and private development companies. When the first redevelopment plan for Taksim Square announced in 2007, the idea was new underground tunnel construction for motor vehicle traffic. Additionally, the plan proposed reconstruction of the historic barracks instead of Gezi Park. In 2013, the Prime Minister announced that the new barracks are going to use as shopping complex.
Gezi Parkı'nın bulunduğu yer Taksim Topçu Kışlası'ydı. Taksim Topçu Kışlası'nı yeniden biz inşa ediyoruz. İnşallah orada hem kışlamızı yapacağız ama bu kışla artık tabii kışla olarak görev yapmıyor. Alışveriş merkezinden toplantı salonlarına kadar. Belki rezidans, otel vesaire.
So, the plan basically aimed radically transform of one of the most iconic urban center in Turkey. Actually, Taksim Square is just an example of how neoliberal urbanism play a dominant role with the direction of policymakers in Turkey. In the case of Gezi Park, it is obvious to see the planned transformation of the space is mainly for the market creation. As explained in Rebel Cities, for centuries, cities have been the stage of utopic ideas and at the same time the skin for capitalist accumulation. Cities have become a conflictual space where those who control common resources can decide each aspect of the life of citizens. After this announcement, the first objections from non-governmental organizations was heard. Their doubts was related to how the government transformed a public space into a consumption space. Following this situation, several legal objection trials by professional associations rejected.
In a way, to be a victim. It's even wickeder to be a predator, but it's wicked to be a victim and allow it. You can't, as an individual, you can't do anything, but you can organize. If you're being victimized by an expressway that a bureaucracy is putting through for the benefit of the automobile people, then you fight that. You refuse to be a victim of that.
In the 60s, along with the process carried out by the people against the Moses urban transformation projects in America, Jane Jacobs gained the human-focused thinking ability to the urbanism literature for the first time. The problems don't seem to have changed since those days. Everything started with the protest of a small group of environmental activists in 28 July.
Ve doğru giderken durumu fark ettik. Bir tane dozerin parkın yan duvarlarından içeri doğru girdiğini.
Those days, one of the main topic of people became right to the city issue.
Yolu genişleteceklermiş ve buradaki ağaçları da keseceklermiş.
People who opposed to implementation of the plan had been complaining about the country's destruction for many years.
Aslında kullanılmaz hale getirip buradaki projeyi uygulamaya kalkışıyorsunuz.
These people wanted their voices to be heard. They thought they had the right to speak in the city they live in, and they had the right to shape it.
Süresiz burada kalmaya karar verdik bu durumda. Ve bunu engellemeye karşı kararlıyız. Çünkü bu kanunsuz, yapılan iş kanunsuz bir proje.
Sabah 7.30'da herkesin burada olması gerekiyor.
This attempt was accompanied by the police state's use of tear gas against the protesters. Related to this issue, David Harvey summarized Lefebvre's ideas follows. The right to the city is far more than the individual liberty to access urban resources. It is a right to change ourselves by changing the city. It is moreover a common rather than an individual right, since this transformation inevitably depends upon the exercise of a collective power to reshape the processes of urbanization. The freedom to make and remake our cities and ourselves is, I want to argue, one of the most precious, yet most neglected of our human rights. Of course, the park area became the core of the protests. People started to stay in this area. So, Gezi Commune started to form slowly. The people of Gezi was the combination of individuals and civic organizations.
Meydanın 10 gün, Gezi Parkı'nın da 2 haftalık süreçte bu Taksim Gezi Komünü'nde olduğu süreçte insanlar farklı ideolojilerdeki insanların bir arada nasıl yaşayabileceklerini deneyimleme fırsatı buldular. Ki nitekim hiçbir yönetici kesim, hiçbir yönetici bir devlet mekanizması olmadan insanlar birbirleriyle hayatlarını devam ettirebileceklerini öğrenebildi. Yayın evlerinin getirdiği kitaplar vardı. Gezi Kütüphanesi kurulmuştu. O kitaplar insanlara dağıtılıyordu. Ben orada çadırda kalırken bir bakıyorum sabah annem gelmiş evden. Yeğenimle birlikte bir damlacık börek yapmış, çörek yapmış. Oradaki insanlara dağıtıyor.
After the 15 days Gezi Commune, the police drove people out of the park using tear gas and water. In the example of the Gezi movement, we can interpret people's spreading activism as a reflection of a sign of the return of universal ideas of freedom, solidarity, equality, and emancipation. Holston explains about insurgent citizenship as follows. I suggest that the sources of this new imaginary lie not in any specifically architectural or planning production of the city, but rather in the development of the theory in both fields as an investigation into what I call the spaces of insurgent citizenships. By insurgent, I mean to emphasize the opposition of these spaces of citizenship to the modernist spaces that physically dominate so many cities today. We see the practical version of Holston's idea after the Gezi Commune. Without top-down rules, the people created their own living spaces, so new imaginary idea made by citizens. On the 21st of Gezi Park protests, Taksim Square witnessed a different kind of action. A person named Erdem Gündüz started to stand steadily in front of the Atatürk Cultural Center.
Bence Duran Adam kesinlikle bir performanstı ama bundan da öte çok büyük ve güçlü bir eylemdi. Bu eylem icrasının altyapısını anlamak için buna performatif bir bakış açısıyla yaklaşmamız gerekiyor. Öncelikli birkaç kriterimiz var ki bunlardan birisi mekan. Taksim Meydanı oldukça politik bir mekan. Durmak aslında tam olarak bir işaret etme hali. Bakışını yönelttiği yer yıkılması planlanan bir kültür merkezi, Atatürk Kültür Merkezi ve yöne bakmamız gerektiğini, orada bir şeyin olup bittiğini bize anlatıyor. Kendisini konumlandırdığı alanla bir iletişim haline geçebiliyor olması zaten oraya birçok insanı toplayan ana etmenlerden birisiydi. Adam aynı zamanda cinsiyetsiz bir figürdü. O figürün erkek olması bizim aklımıza gelen ilk şey değildi. Toplanan tüm o kalabalıkla birlikte birçok farklı cinsiyetten ve birçok farklı oluştan insan bu performansa dahil oldu.
After the protest, he talked with some journalists and argued that the government's resignation wouldn't be enough. Government system should be completely changed. In a short time, the events were spread all over the Turkey with the participation of thousands of people to the protests. The insurgency was not about only Gezi Park anymore. It was something more.
Yavrum 76 yaşındayım. Bak bezlen geldim ki böyle polisler sıkarsa ağzımı kapatayım diye. Burasındaki yok ederse biz ne yapacağız? Bir yere basacak toprak görmüyoruz biz artık. Yeter binalardan bıktık biz artık.
11 people were killed in Turkey in this process. 8,163 people were injured.
Açık bağırsana şuna.
Dünyanın birçok yerinden insanlar, dünyanın birçok yerinden birçok ünlü insan bu Gezi komününe destek mesajları, destek Twitter'ları attı. Bu halk hareketlerini kendi totaliter yapılarına ve kendi otoriterleşmelerine bir bahane olarak kullanırlar. Neredeyse iki katına çıkan polis ve asker, kolluk kuvveti sayılır. Halkın üzerindeki baskıyı ve ifade özgürlüklerinin son derece kısıtlanmasını son derece arttırdı. Gezi'yi klasik diğer ideolojik devrimsel hareketlerden farklı tutmak gerekiyor. Çünkü Gezi tam olarak bir halk hareketi. Nitekim Gezi'de ilk defa bu hareketi deneyimleyen beyaz Türkler, etikapitalist Müslümanlar, anarşistler, devrimciler veya apolitik insanlar, bunların hepsi bir araya gelip kendilerini ifade edebilecek bir alan buldular. Ki nitekim Gezi Komünü'nün devamındaki bu forum kültürü bize hala aradan yıllar geçmesine rağmen bugün Türkiye'de, İstanbul'da ve diğer büyük kentlerde park kültürünü ortaya çıkarttı. Eskiden park kültürü Avrupa'daki gibi, Hollanda'daki gibi veya Amerika'daki Central Park'taki gibi çok fazla yoğun değildi. Cinsel yönelimlerimizle, siyasi fikirlerimizle ideolojik tavırlarınızla bizi olduğumuz gibi kabul eden ve özgür bir şekilde yaşamamızı olanak sağlayan sokaklarda, kentlerde ve parklarda bir araya gelmek istiyoruz.
Yani sonuç olarak Gezi Parkı'nı kazandık. Proje oraya uygulanmadı. Her ne kadar bunun bedeli ağır olsa da. Ve o süreçten sonra devletin halkın üstündeki baskısı hala devam etmiyor desek yalan olur. Farklı ideolojik arka plana sahip olan insanlar bile bir araya geldiler ve bu aslında Türkiye tarihinde gerçekten bir dönüm noktasıydı ve eminim birçok kişi farkındalık yaşadı bu konuda. Aslında sokakların, parkların kendimizi ifade edebileceğimiz alanlar olduğunu gördük.
Latin Amerika'da ne? Hindistan'da bir arayışta. Özgürlük içinde, özgürlük kafanda, özgürlük, özgürlük sen neredeysen orada. Özgürlük içinde, özgürlük kafanda, özgürlük, özgürlük sen neredeysen orada. Ne sokakta, ne meydanda, ne kampüste, ne yolda, ne mahpusta, ne torna tezgahında. Özgürlük içinde, özgürlük kafanda, özgürlük, özgürlük sen neredeysen orada. Özgürlük içinde, özgürlük kafanda, özgürlük, özgürlük sen neredeysen orada. Yarsan. Hem Cenova hem Latin Amerika'da hem Hindistan'da bir arayışta. Özgürlük elinde, özgürlük seninle, özgürlük, özgürlük sen oradaysan orada. Özgürlük elinde, özgürlük